Two teenage girls went for a hike. They never came home, but before they disappeared, one of them did something remarkable. She saw the man coming. She had seconds. She pressed record on her phone. That 43-second video sat on a police server for 6 years. Then it caught a killer. This is their story. February 13th, 2017, Delphi, Indiana. A small town of 5,000 people where everyone knows everyone, where kids ride bikes to school and neighbors leave their doors unlocked. It was the day before Valentine's Day. Cold, clear, a perfect winter afternoon for a hike. Two best friends, 13-year-old Abigail Williams and 14-year-old Libby German, were dropped off at the Monon High Bridge Trail just after 1 in the afternoon. They had been there before. They knew the path, they took photos, they laughed. And then, somewhere on that trail, something went terribly wrong. Libby German, everyone called her Libby, was 14 years old. Bright, funny, and full of personality. She loved her family fiercely, had a sharp sense of humor, and according to everyone who knew her, she had a gift for making people feel seen. She was the kind of teenager who lit up a room without even trying. Abigail Williams, Abby, was 13. Quiet, kind, and deeply loved. She had her whole life ahead of her. She and Libby had been close friends for years, the kind of friendship built on inside jokes, weekend sleepovers, and the simple joy of being young together. That afternoon on the trail was supposed to be just another ordinary day. The Monon High Bridge is a local landmark, an old abandoned railroad trestle stretching nearly a quarter-mile over Deer Creek. Locals love it, families hike it, teenagers photograph it. Libby's older sister Kelsey dropped them off at the trailhead at 1 o'clock, and they agreed to meet back up around 3:30. Libby posted a photo of Abby walking across the bridge to Snapchat. That was the last anyone heard from either of them. Somewhere on that bridge, Libby German noticed something. A man walking toward them. Something about him didn't feel right. In that moment, at 14 years old, Libby did something remarkable. She quietly pulled out her phone and began recording him. The footage captured a man in a dark jacket, walking with his hands in his pockets across the bridge, and then his voice, low and calm and chilling, 3 words, "Down the hill." Authorities believe those words were a command. Libby kept recording. She kept that phone in her hand, even as investigators would later confirm. She knew what was happening. When the girls didn't show up at 3:30, Kelsey called for help. By that evening, search teams were combing the trail. The following morning, February 14th, Valentine's Day, searchers discovered the girls near Deer Creek, not far from the bridge. The community of Delphi was shattered. Investigators found Libby's phone at the scene, and on it, the footage. Grainy, shaky shot by a frightened 14-year-old, but it existed. It was evidence. It was a face. In February 2017, Indiana State Police released a still image from the video and a brief audio clip to the public. The man became known simply as the Bridge Guy, and for the next 7 years, he haunted the internet. The case consumed online true crime communities, Reddit threads, Facebook groups, YouTube channels. Thousands of amateur investigators poring over the same grainy image, frame by frame. Tips flooded in from across the country. Thousands of them, none led anywhere. The Bridge Guy remained a ghost, and in Delphi a whole community lived in fear because whoever he was almost certainly still out there. While the world searched for the Bridge Guy online, he was living an ordinary life in Delphi itself. Richard Allen was a 50-year-old pharmacy technician who had worked at the local CVS for years. Neighbors described him as friendly and unassuming. He was a regular at the local pub, where he and his wife would stop in several times a week. He was, by all appearances, a pillar of the community. One of the most disturbing details to emerge was this. Shortly after the girls passed away, their families needed photos printed for the memorial. Richard Allen printed those photos for them at no charge. He stood behind that CVS counter and handed the grieving families the smiling faces of the girls that investigators now believe he had taken from them. He attended community gatherings. He talked about the case at the bar. He expressed sympathy. For 5 years, In 2022, 5 years after the murders, a volunteer helping organize thousands of tips discovered something, a lead sheet with Richard Allen's name that had been filed and forgotten. At nearly the same time, investigators were re-examining physical evidence found at the scene, a single unspent .40 caliber bullet. Ballistic analysis determined it had been cycled through a specific gun, a Sig Sauer P226. The gun was traced. It belonged to Richard Allen. On October 26, 2022, 5 years, 8 months, and 13 days after Abby and Libby disappeared, police arrested Richard Allen at his home in Delphi. The community that had lived in fear for years, the families who had waited and grieved and never stopped hoping, finally had a name. The bridge guy had a face, and he had been among them the entire time. What followed the arrest was extraordinary. According to prosecutors, Richard Allen confessed, not once, but more than 60 times, to prison psychologists, to wardens, to inmates, to family members on recorded phone calls. In one recorded call to his wife, he asked her, "Do you still love me?" He had confessed to being on that trail, to being the man on the bridge. The trial of Richard Allen began in October 2024, 7 years after the crime. The prosecution laid out the evidence piece by piece: the bullet, the confessions, the video from Libby's phone. On November 11, 2024, the jury returned its verdict: guilty. Guilty on all 4 counts of murder. In the packed courthouse, the families of Abby and Libby finally heard the word they had waited 7 years to hear. At sentencing, Richard Allen was given 130 years in prison, 65 years for each girl. The judge told him directly, "These families will deal with your carnage forever." Libby's grandmother, who had raised her, addressed the court. She said Libby would have been 22 years old. She said she thinks about her every single day. Here is what we know about Libby German. She was 14 years old. She was frightened. And in one of the most extraordinary acts of courage in the history of American true crime, she pressed record. She kept that phone in her hand and she captured the face of the man who would take her life. That footage, that audio, those 3 words, "down the hill," became the cornerstone of a case that took 7 years to close. Libby didn't survive, but her instinct did, and it brought justice. Abby Williams was 13 years old. Libby German was 14. They went for a hike on a February afternoon and never came home. But Libby made sure the world would never forget what happened on that bridge. If this story moved you, share it. Subscribe to the Unknown Archives, because the only way we honor people like Abby and Libby is by making sure their names are never forgotten.